Your buddy Mike spent 40 years building HVAC systems. Retired at 62 with $800,000 saved. Dead at 67 from a heart attack. His ex-wife, who divorced him 15 years earlier, is now 73, living in his paid-off lake house, spending his pension. His current wife got the 401k. Between them, they'll probably enjoy his life's work for another 25 years. Mike got 5. Here's another one. Construction foreman works from 22 to 65. Saves diligently, retires with $1.2 million in investments. Knees are shot. Back is finished. Can't travel. Can't golf. Can't do much of anything except watch television and take pills. Dies at 70. Total retirement period 5 years. Cost per year of working, roughly $24,000. That's what each year of his retirement cost him in labor. Third example. Tech executive. Makes great money. Contributes maximum to retirement accounts for 30 years. Gets divorced at 55. Court splits everything 50-50. Awards alimony. He's back to square one, at an age where compound interest can't save him. He'll work until 73. Not because he wants to, but because he has to. Now, you're probably thinking these are cherry-picked horror stories. Sure, maybe. But here's what nobody wants to tell you. For men, retirement, as sold to us, that entire golden years fantasy, is fundamentally broken. Math doesn't math. Biology doesn't biology. And the system has built-in wealth transfer mechanisms that specifically target male retirement savings. I'm going to walk you through exactly how this works. Why the traditional retirement model is a wealth extraction scheme that penalizes men. Specifically, and more importantly, what you actually need to understand about building wealth. In your 40s and 50s, when the stakes are highest, and the room for error is smallest. Think about retirement like a bet at a rigged casino. You spend 40 years putting chips on the table. The house takes a cut at every stage. Taxes when you earn, taxes when you invest, taxes when you withdraw. Inflation eating away at purchasing power, market volatility, healthcare costs. And here's a part nobody mentions. The payout period is determined by one factor you can't control: your lifespan. For men in the United States, life expectancy is about 76 years. For women, it's 81. That's a 5-year difference. Doesn't sound like much, until you realize that most men retire around 65 if they're lucky. That gives you on average 11 years. Women get 16. They're getting 45% more retirement than you, for the same amount of work. But it gets worse, because those numbers are averages. And averages hide everything interesting. Break it down by occupation, and the picture gets darker. Construction workers, the guys building everything you see around you. Average life expectancy is 61. They don't even make it to retirement. Truckers who move every product you buy, average 61. Miners 59. Manufacturing workers 63. These aren't outliers. These are massive employment categories. We're talking millions of men who pay into Social Security their entire lives and die before they can collect. That's not a retirement plan. That's a donation. Here's where it gets really interesting. The system is designed around a specific assumption that you'll work from roughly 25 to 65, then retire and die around 80. 40 years in, 15 years out. The entire financial services industry, every retirement calculator, every 401k plan, is built on this model. But that model was created in 1935, when Social Security was established. Life expectancy for men back then was 58. The retirement age was 65. You see the game? They set retirement at an age most men wouldn't reach. It was designed to be a system most people paid into, but never collected from. Now, to be fair, life expectancy has increased. But here's what hasn't increased proportionally: the retirement age, the amount you're expected to save, or most importantly, your capacity to earn in your final working years. Let me introduce you to what I call the peak earnings trap. Your highest earning years statistically are between 45 and 55. You've climbed the ladder. You've got experience. You're at maximum productivity. This should be when you're socking away massive amounts for retirement. But this is also when life hits you with its biggest bills. Kids in college, aging parents needing care, mortgage still hanging around, possibly alimony, or child support from a divorce. Your peak earning years coincide exactly with your peak expense years. The system tells you to save the most when you have the least available to save. And here's a psychological trick that gets everyone when you die. You're 25, and someone tells you to put 10% into your 401k. You think, great, I'll have millions by 65. So the math works on paper. Compound interest is real, but that math assumes a perfect world. It assumes you never get laid off, never get divorced, never have a medical emergency, never need to pull money out for an actual crisis. It assumes the market only goes up. It assumes your job still exists in 20 years. It assumes you can physically work until 65. How many men do you know for whom all those assumptions held true? I spent 10 years running a business. I was surrounded by accountants, fiscal lawyers, guys who understood how money actually moves through the system. And here's what they taught me. Every financial vehicle you're told to use for retirement has a built-in customer. And that customer is not you. 401k plans. The customer is your employer, who gets tax breaks and reduce labor costs because you're willing to defer compensation. Mutual funds inside those 401ks. The customer is the fund manager collecting fees, whether you make money or not. Social Security. The customer is the current generation of retirees that you're funding. You're not the customer, you're the product. Let me give you a concrete example with actual numbers. Meet hypothetical Jim. Jim makes $85,000 a year. He's 47 years old. He's been contributing 10% to his 401k since he was 30. That's 17 years of contributions. With employer match and market returns, he's sitting on about $340,000. Jim gets divorced. His ex-wife is awarded half of all marital assets accumulated during the marriage. If they were married for 15 of those 17 contributing years, she's entitled to half of roughly $300,000 of that balance. That's $150,000 gone. Plus, the court awards her alimony of $2,000 a month for 10 years. That's another $240,000 in after-tax money that Jim has to come up with. Jim's effective retirement savings are now under $200,000, and he's 47. He has 18 years until normal retirement age. To get back to where he was, he'd need to contribute over $18,000 per year, every year, assuming 6% returns, but he's also paying $2,000 a month in alimony. His take-home pay after taxes is probably around $55,000. After alimony, that's $31,000. After basic living expenses, housing, food, insurance, he's got maybe $12,000 of discretionary income. There's no path forward. He'll work until he's 70, minimum. And here's the kicker. Jim's ex-wife, who got half the 401k and the alimony, will likely live longer than him. She'll enjoy the fruits of his labor longer than he will. This isn't an edge case. 50% of marriages end in divorce. 70% of divorces are initiated by women. In divorces involving couples over 50, that number jumps to 66%. There's even a term for it, gray divorce. And in these divorces, the financial impact on men is devastating because the time horizon to recover is compressed. Now, you might be thinking, okay, fine, divorce is bad for retirement. Don't get divorced. But here's the thing. The system extracts from you whether you're married or not. If you stay single, you're paying the highest tax rates because married couples get better brackets. Your Social Security benefits calculation is lower. You don't get the economies of scale on housing costs, healthcare, or basic living expenses that couples enjoy. Society treats you as disposable. Your value is measured entirely by your economic productivity. If you get married and stay married, you're statistically likely to work longer hours, take fewer risks, accept worse working conditions, and prioritize income over health because you're a provider. That's the role. The trade-off is supposed to be a partner who supports you into old age. Here's the reality. In marriages where the man becomes seriously ill, the divorce rate is 21%. When the woman becomes seriously ill, the divorce rate is 3%. You're more likely to get divorced if you get sick. So, the system pushes you toward marriage for financial optimization. Marriage introduces catastrophic risk to your retirement, and staying single penalizes you with higher costs and taxes. There's no winning move, only damage mitigation. Let me introduce you to the health penalty. This is the part that makes everything worse. Jobs that pay enough to build serious retirement savings are increasingly sedentary and high. Stress. Corporate jobs, finance, tech, management. You're sitting 12 hours a day, eating poorly, not sleeping enough, stress through the roof. The jobs that keep you physically active and have lower stress typically don't pay enough to build substantial retirement savings. Trade work pays decent, but as we covered, The physical toll means you don't live long enough to enjoy retirement. There's an inverse relationship between the jobs that pay enough to retire and the health outcomes that let you enjoy retirement. A doctor who retires at 68 after 40 years of brutal hours and stress has the money but not the health. A landscaper who stayed active his whole life has the health but not the money. And here's where the psychology gets dark. Men tie their identity to their work more than women do. Multiple studies show this. When you ask men who they are, they tell you what they do. I'm an engineer. I'm a contractor. I'm a manager. Women are more likely to describe themselves through relationships or personal attributes. When a man retires, he loses his identity. There's actual research on this from the National Bureau of Economic Research. Men who retire experience a significant increase in depression in the first year. The effect is stronger for men than women. Social isolation increases. Purpose disappears. So even if you make it to retirement with money and health, which statistically you probably won't, you're walking into an identity crisis that the system doesn't prepare you for and doesn't care about. Now, here's where this gets really interesting. I want you to think about the narrative around retirement in society. When a woman retires, it's framed as liberation. She's finally free to pursue her passions, travel, self-care, book clubs. Society celebrates older women taking up space and doing things for themselves. When a man retires, the framing is loss. He's no longer useful. He's a has-been. If he travels, he's running away. If he pursues hobbies, he's trying to recapture his youth. If he doesn't stay busy, he's lazy. There's no cultural space for a retired man to simply exist without justifying his existence. Through productivity. I was reading through some data from the Census Bureau. Women receive more than 75% of all estate inheritances. Part of that is because they live longer, but part of it is because men are more likely to die with debt. Credit card debt, medical debt, mortgage debt. Even in death, wealth flows away from men. And Social Security is designed around this. The spousal benefit means that a woman who never worked outside the home can collect up to 50% of her husband's Social Security benefit while he's alive, and 100% after he dies. It's a direct wealth transfer. He pays in his whole life. She collects for potentially decades after he's gone. To be clear, I'm not saying this is some conspiracy. This is just how the incentives work. Systems optimize for their own survival. Social Security needs people to pay in more than they take out. Men dying earlier is a feature, not a bug. It keeps the system solvent. Insurance companies price based on risk. Men are higher risk, so we pay more for life insurance, but live less long to benefit from it. Healthcare costs explode in your 70s and 80s. Women live longer in that high-cost window, but they're often spending down assets that their husbands accumulated. Every system is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. And the retirement system is designed to extract maximum wealth from male labor while minimizing the payout period. So, what do you actually do with this information? First thing, stop thinking about retirement as an age. Start thinking about it as a number. The number is not how old you are. The number is how much passive income you can generate. If your investments can throw off $40,000 a year, and you can live on $40,000, you're retired. Whether that happens at 50 or 70, is irrelevant. This reframes everything. You're not saving for some distant date when you turn 65. You're building an income-generating machine. Every dollar you invest is a worker bee that brings back money while you sleep. The question is not when can I stop working, but when do my worker bees produce enough to cover my lifestyle? Second, completely abandon the idea that you're going to work until 65 and then stop. That model is dead. It died sometime in the 2000s, but nobody updated the brochure. The new model is what I call the dial down. You work full intensity in your peak earning years, but starting in your 50s, you're actively building off-ramps, consulting instead of employment, part-time instead of full-time, contract work, multiple small income streams instead of one big one. The goal is not to go from 100% work to 0% work overnight. That's terrible psychologically and financially. The goal is to go from 100 to 80 to 60 to 40 over a decade. You're not retiring, you're transitioning. This keeps income flowing, keeps your identity intact, and lets you test what retirement actually feels like before you're fully committed. Third, and this is the one nobody wants to hear, you need to be absolutely ruthless about protecting your assets. That means prenups if you remarry. That means keeping retirement accounts in your name only when possible. That means understanding exactly what assets are marital property and what aren't. That means not telling anyone, including family, exactly what you have. What 99% of people do is usually what not to do. 99% of people treat their retirement savings as a shared resource that can be tapped for emergencies, split in divorce, borrowed against, or raided early. Your retirement money needs to be in a fortress, untouchable, non-negotiable, because there will be 1,000 reasons over the next 20 years why you should access it early. All of them will sound legitimate in the moment. All of them will destroy your future. Look, here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. The retirement system in America is not designed for your success. It's designed to extract maximum productivity from your peak working years while minimizing the payout obligation. As a man, you're on the losing end of every actuarial table. You'll work harder jobs, die younger, lose more in divorce, and have less social support in old age. The only rational response is to opt out of the traditional model entirely. Build wealth aggressively in your 40s and 50s, not for some fantasy retirement at 65, but to create optionality at 55 or even 50. Protect those assets, like your life depends on it, because it does. And plan for a long transition out of work, not a sudden stop. The golden years are a marketing myth. What you're actually building toward is financial independence. The ability to say no, the ability to work because you want to, not because you have to. That's the only retirement that actually works for men. Everything else is just a slow-motion wealth transfer to people who will outlive